I wouldn't exactly say I was affected by the education system. I would say kudos to the education system I went through. I would say I had a good education. I think I had a good education. So for education, I would say I didn't really suffer from the education system. I went to private schools, to be fair. I went to private schools all my life. Like my primary school was private, daycare was private, secondary school was private, university was private. So it was more of a controlled curriculum. And I mean, we paid for what we got. So then again, I've heard stories about how the government brought in an initiative to feed primary school children, but they were not getting food. So please tell me where the money was going to. If I was taking it a step further, I would go to NYSC, right, which comes after education. And I've definitely been a victim of corruption in NYSC, because tell me why you people put us in a place that is not fit for even prisoners to live in. Tell me why you were not running generators that you collected money to fuel and we were just there in the dark sitting down. Tell me why I had to take a shit in a literal sewer with holes because there were no good toilets in my camp.
In terms of the educational system in Nigeria, I would say it's 50-50. It is definitely 50-50 because no matter how bad the standard of living is in Nigeria, I would say there are definitely good schools. And I don't think it's really about the schools. I think it's about the people. Nigerian people who are very educated. We take our education very seriously. We're also very smart, brilliant, and intelligent. So even our teachers, even if many teachers were thrown into terrible school conditions, within them, they were actually very knowledgeable and they did well as teachers. I would say my primary and my secondary school education was actually very good. Like my primary school was very, very good. I had a fantastic foundation in terms of everything, even down to speaking English and learning about different subjects, math and quantitative and verbal reasoning and all of that. Like I definitely had a good foundation, and I know a lot of us definitely had good foundations. Also my secondary school too, even though many of our teachers were annoying, but I would say that was where I really learned how to read. But everything was going fine until I went to the University of Lagos. Like, I would say like sometimes maybe I wish I studied abroad for my university, I don't know. But going to the University of Lagos, very, very terrible. Our lecturers, because I studied law in uni, and in all honesty, I never wanted to study law. I wanted to study mass comm because I always wanted to be in the media. We are like 200 and something in a class, which means you can hardly even have a personal relationship with your lecturer. And then half of the lecturers are trying to sleep with students to give them grades. I would say I didn't learn much, if I'm being honest with you, when I was in school. I tried my best to just read through the textbooks, but even your what you write in the exam may not even have bearing on what your result is going to be like, because people's scripts were getting misplaced. Lecturers had personal vendettas against students, so they'll just give them any kind of scores. Like, I'm telling this to your parents who are funding your education, they'll just be like, no, it's a lie, just go and read. But it was never as straightforward as reading and passing. No, there were hurdles you had to jump in between. I would say foundation was good, but you see that point where it was time to go to university. I guess I just learned how to be street. I learned how to be smart. But in terms of the education, like the book part, I didn't learn nothing. Ask me anything about law, I don't know.
Were you ever affected by poor healthcare systems in Nigeria?
Of course, yes. Very wicked nurses and doctors. I hate needles. Like, when I see needles, like, even till now, like, when I got my COVID test, the doctor was like, what's going on? I thought she came here but I hate needles. I was, 13, 14, and I was really, really sick. Thinking that probably malaria, obviously, but I think it was food poisoning. Obviously, now we have to go do malaria test, and my mom, in my house, if you are pregnant today, my mother will find out today, because if you cough, pee tests. Pee test. Every day we do pee tests in that house. It was for the best. I'm not even going to lie though, because the fear of that alone is the beginning of every wisdom in the world. Anyway, she took me to the hospital. This woman, very fair woman, big, normal nurse stature in Nigeria. She wanted to give me injection, just to draw my blood, just to see test. Obviously, like, I see the injection and I'm like crying, running. That's what I saying, you are pregnant, Abby. That's why you're running. I was like, God, obviously at first, like, I'm so small in Nigeria, they've ruined all your self-esteem to even talk to adults, to be fighting back. This woman was just saying all sorts. I think she was even antagonizing my mom, So she now started getting worried. As if she did not know that normal, if you want to give me injection, like I hate it, right? Eventually, I'm like, you know what? I don't want this woman to give me the injection. I want somebody else. Like, don't touch me, blah, blah, blah. Someone else came in as the good cop. No, bad cop, good cop. She came in. Fine girl. This one, that one. Take it now. She said, don't worry. You don't know anything. Childbirth is even harder. Bro, I'm 13. I was in high school. Like, what's my business? Like, they took me further there. I thought about a lot of things.
When I was nine-ish, around 9 or 10, I was in secondary school. I think I just started secondary school. I had a birthday party to go for in Bagada in one of my friends' houses. I can never ever forget this event. Now, we went for this birthday party. It was a small party. It was all done and good, and we were going back home. We had an older driver then, so the driver was taking me back home. We were on Bagada Expressway. And if you know anything about Nigeria, I don't know if the situation is really different now, but I mean, people cross anywhere and anyhow. Express, people cross. Pedestrian bridge is right there, people cross. This one, I didn't even know if there was a pedestrian bridge on that bridge at the time, but it was the norm for everybody to just cross the bridge. And I think it was a thing where the drivers are so confident that nobody wants to die, so they will cross before the car hits you. So them, so they won't slow down, they'll just be going. And I remember we were just going at high speed. I don't even know if it was high speed or low speed, we were just going. And next thing, the driver collides with a woman, and this woman is inside the windscreen. Like the windscreen literally caved in. It was a full-blown accident. And I was just like, how old then? Maybe 9 or so. I was just me and the driver. I was sitting, and in my mind, I was like, God, like what's happening? Like blood everywhere. Before you knew it, we were on the side of the road. People have started gathering around. Everybody's trying to look for the next course of action. If it was a normal country, maybe you call 911. An ambulance would come with the spangled body or whatever and come and do CPR or know the best route of action to save the person's life. But then it was the only course of action was for you to transport that person to the hospital yourself. It was a case of them bringing the woman's body. The woman was unconscious, obviously. Bringing her body and putting her in the car. God. I remember how bloody those seats were. I think it was my mom's car then. The seats were so bloody. So they put the woman in the car. And then they got someone else to drive. They were asking randomly who knows how to drive. Like it was a stick. Who knows how to drive a manual car. I think they got someone to drive. So the driver and I sat in front, 2 of us in front. Then they had to have additional people follow. Just because there was a thing in Nigeria then where if you hit somebody, like hit and run now. If you hit and you don't run and you say you want to take the person to the hospital, then you could go halfway and abandon the person on the road. So some other people too followed for quality control. Now, this accident happened in Bagada. I'm already a kid in the car with the windscreen caved in. There's blood everywhere. There's somebody that is about to die behind me in the car. Bear in mind, I've never seen somebody in an accident before. I've never seen, maybe on TV, even on TV, they'll cover my eyes that time when I was small, right? Now, we took her to the closest hospital. It was a private hospital, R. Jolad. I can never forget. We took her to R. Jolad. We were there for about maybe an hour or so. They didn't accept this person. I don't know if it was a deposit they were asking for or trying to do a criminal investigation, I don't know. But we were there for a while. They wasted time, no CPR, no nothing, no emergency first aid treatment. They told us they couldn't accept the person. Now, we took that person again to Bagada General Hospital, which is a government hospital. We were at Bagada General Hospital for hours. I was a kid, so I wasn't privy to the conversations they were having. We were there for a longest time. Nothing happened. They didn't treat this woman. They ended up saying they didn't have space. After wasting about 2 or 3 or 4 hours, we now had to drive this person that is losing blood per second to the island. I remember being there, Lagos Island, for a long time. I think I saw the body again when we got to that hospital. And I was just so scared. And I was like, in my mind, now that I think about it, like if she had just gotten first aid or gotten like care on the first place she went to, maybe she would have survived. But like it was just so many transferring, so many people rejecting her, so many hospitals rejecting her. I couldn't even imagine that. I couldn't place it. I think I had to walk. My church was close by then, so someone walked me to my church. Then I took a bus back home.
I was definitely affected by poor healthcare system. Like I mentioned before, like growing up in Nigeria, I was always sick and I won't lie, there were some times where the healthcare system was definitely good to me, which is why I'm still alive today for sure. I was close to death based on the Nigerian healthcare system, but also I remember when I was admitted into a certain hospital, and what happens to me, and this is what I always tell people, like even here as I'm in Canada, like whenever I want to draw blood, because I haven't been admitted into any hospital here, so whenever they want to draw blood, I always tell them that, oh, my veins are really tiny, they are hard to find, so you have to work extra hard to get blood from me. And they're always like, oh, thank you for telling me. So they'll go and get like smaller needles. They like take other precautions because they know that my veins are really small and it's hard to draw blood, right? But then in Nigeria, I always try to tell them some of these things. First of all, they don't even listen to you. They just do what they want to do. They don't even care. So I was admitted into this hospital. I think I had malaria, and I had to take a drip, and they were giving me meds and all and injections, right? So I told them, I was like, whenever I take drips, they don't last long in my hand. So you have to keep switching them out. So like today, let's say you give me a drip, it's going to swell up by tomorrow. So tomorrow, just be ready to come and change it. So I try to let them know in advance, as long as I'm here, you're going to have to keep switching these drips, like from here to here to here to here. Because even me, I know my body, and I'll tell you, right? It's not easy, but that's just what it is. So they try to give me the drip. And even when you want to put the drip in my hand, it's hard. Like you literally insert this thing like in like 3 different places before you now find the right spots, which they did. It took time. They put the drip in, and then I think it lasted me for a day, and it started swelling up like the next day. And I'm like, okay guys, you have to come and change this thing. So this nurse wanted to give me an injection, because you know how they always switch out the drip line and then they put the injection in and they put the drip line back. And then this nurse came, my hand was already swelling up, and she wanted to give me an injection. I said, you know what, before you give me this injection, I think you should change the drip line first, because it's not going to work. This man was like, no, what's there? Come on, I'm going to do it for you. You know, Nigerian nurses today are also wicked. I really told her, I was like, no, you can't put this in through. Do you know this woman didn't answer me, and she wanted to start forcing this injection through. And the crazy thing is that you know how your body is, like, it won't even pass through if it's already blocked. And because that's why it's swollen up, right? Because it's already blocked by like maybe blood clots or whatever. And she was still trying to push and force this injection liquid through. And I was literally screaming and shouting until my husband came in and I was like, what's all this force? He's like, no, you can't give her this injection through this thing. She has already told you. Like as an adult, I was crying. I was literally crying that guy's thing is hurting me too much, until they now eventually changed. I'm like, what the heck? Like, what's wrong with you people? Like, why do you guys do things like this? Because you can even see that the liquid is not even going through, and we're trying to force it in. So definitely that's part of the poor healthcare system that we're talking about, because it's not going to cost you anything but time, which I'm already paying for, to just switch out the drip line and administer this thing properly.
So I'm going to ask you about job opportunities and career opportunities. So were you ever affected by unemployment or not enough job opportunities based on your aspirations in Nigeria?
You know, I used to always say that I was unlucky, because I studied international relations in Nigeria as my first degree. So I thought that, you know, my aspiration was to work in an embassy or, you know, be like a diplomat. That was how I saw myself, and I hoped that, you know, that was going to come to pass. But the year that I graduated from university, there was an hiring freeze in the Federal Civil Service, so there was no way of getting in, except again you have leg to you know to get in, right? My leg was not strong enough, so there was no way to get into the embassy or to work in the foreign missions or any of that stuff, right? So it was a bit of a letdown for sure. And then you started applying like everybody else that got out of university, like you, to like jobs, to like MTM, Glow. At the time, those were like the jobs that everybody that came out of university would always get. I remember going to one of those interviews where it was like a group interview, and there were like eight people that were looking to get interviewed, and there was like a panel of judges, and they would ask you a question and you just kind of answer. And I got one of those jobs, and they offered, I think the offer was like 60,000 naira or something. Probably doesn't sound like a lot, but at the time, I was like, I know how much I paid in private university to come out and be taking a job for 50,000 naira, and the deal was like what, 480,000 a year. I think that was the point where I was like, wait. And again, the job was in Lagos, so imagine me waking up at 6 a.m. in the morning, like 5 a.m. actually, to get to Lagos on time on the island to go do this interview. Like I left the house, I left IB like 4 o'clock to go do this interview. You know, it was expensive, obviously, taking, cab from here to here and, trying to make it to the interview, and they offer you 6,000. I'm thinking, I'm not even going to be able to start up and afford an apartment.
For me, I would say I've been pretty blessed as well. I wouldn't say I've really suffered from unemployment. I've literally had a job every time, and I moved from a job to another, like when I was in Nigeria as well. But I know people close to me that didn't get jobs for months. I know people who didn't get jobs for years. So I'm not ignoring that there's that challenge of that workforce unemployment saga, right? There was this job I went for. It was a private company, group of companies in advertising. I had literally gotten the job. I had literally gotten the job offer. I had literally done medicals. Nothing was wrong with my medicals, if you were wondering. Only for me to not get the job after everything. I thought it was just okay, I don't know, maybe something went wrong or whatever, but I heard inside gist that someone actually gave out my slot to somebody else.
I was fortunate to have been employed all the while I was in Nigeria shortly after school, because I think when I was done with university, I think I only worked for like 3 or 4 years before leaving to Canada, so it wasn't that long. But while I was in Nigeria, I was privileged to have been employed, thankfully. But I'll just give one story though. I was actually catfished into some form of employment. So I remember I saw an ad for a social media manager, and I went for the interview. I really got all prepped. I showed up, bamboozled them with all my knowledge of social media and all my knowledge of strategy and marketing and everything, only for me to resume our work, I think, the next couple days. And this lady is like, okay, so I have to follow our driver to go pick up our dry cleaning. I have to go drop something for our kids in school. Excuse me. She must have thought that maybe she was Miranda Priestley from Devil Wears Prada or something. I don't know, but I was like, girl, you asked me to come and be your social media coordinator, not your personal assistant. I don't even know. I don't think I even quit or anything. I just didn't show up again after like 3 days. I'm like, you must be joking. You must be joking. And I think her office was like in Lekki, literally a stone's throw from my house, like 5 minutes walk from my house. I'm like, I live in Lekki with you, and you want to be sending me to be your personal assistant? You are joking. I didn't even show up again. I was like, yeah, no. But thankfully, I was employed when I was in Nigeria. I was privileged in that regard. So I can't even say unemployment affected me.